goodness, everybody. Hey there, everybody. Welcome. It is another exciting, another brand new episode of Because Cannabis every single Wednesday, 4:20 p.m. When you're listening on YouTube, that's where we appear on YouTube. You can click that button. Yep, click it. Take your finger, slide it down, hit subscribe. Figured if I whisper, maybe it'll get you more likely to do it. Hit subscribe. We would definitely appreciate that. Every Wednesday, brand new shows on YouTube at Because Cannabis is where you can find us on YouTube. Socially, you can find us at MeetWM, MEETWM, anywhere you listen to social media. My name is B.C. Wehman. This is Because Cannabis, produced by Wayward Media. You're missing a box up here. If you're watching on YouTube, you're missing a box. If you're listening, wherever you listen to your social media-based podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, we are available audio. If you're listening right now, you're not going to hear Dustin today, and I know that makes you sad. No Dustin Kava with us today. He is, I guess, on assignment. We'll put him on assignment. He's just not here. Anytime Dustin's not here, I really don't know the reason why. I just make up a lot of reasons to make him sound fancier than what he really is. But I will miss you today, Dustin Kava. I will miss you joining us. But because I'm missing Dustin, I got two guests for you. I got two guests for us to talk with today, two people that I'm excited to speak with today as we get the show rolling. And I went this and I found a Google. I literally went to the internet and I took my fingers and I Googled best cannabis podcast. I had to see how we ranked. I had to see where we stood. So I put my fingers on that keyboard, best cannabis podcast. And you know what I found out? Because Cannabis, who you are listening to right now, we are the 19th best ranked cannabis podcast. I'm not sure if that's important or not. I didn't even know there were 18 other cannabis centric podcasts, which kind of bums me out for today. But I do like that I can say the 19th best rated cannabis podcast. Thank you, flowhub.com. Is it the or the? The or the? I have an issue with that. I never know quite which one to say, the or the. I believe if I go to travel back in time to some sort of grammar era, the is with consonants and the is with vowels, but I could be completely making it up and I don't know what it is when it's a number even. So it's the 19th, but I wanted to be the of something. That's what I've always tried to be. And thankfully today, if I can't be the best podcast or the best podcast, I can bring you people from the Ohio Hemp Company. It's who we're excited to have on today. So in just a minute, we'll bring our guests in here, Justin Helt and TJ Richardson from the. We'll have to ask them what it is, the or the Ohio Hemp Company. We'll get them on here in just a few minutes. They're from Dayton, Ohio. Dayton, Ohio, down there. Dayton, Ohio is an interesting place. The Wright brothers are from Dayton there. And if you're listening to this, we're somewhere in the middle of the summer of 2023. And you're listening to this, a factory just burned down, a fire there over at the airport. But down where the Wright brothers were, I feel like the Wright brothers are kind of like America's first jackass, right? Doing things, going out there. Do you think people were annoyed with what they were doing there? I'm not sure. All right, we got to bring our guests in here. Let's find Justin Helt. This is what happens when Dustin not here. Start rambling. Justin Helt, TJ Richardson from the Ohio Hemp Company. We're going to bring them on in just a second. I'm waiting for them to get their camera fixed if they can hear me in the lobby there. Always, there we go. They're back on. We get them back on. I was like trying to give subtle cues. I kept saying it. Justin Helt and TJ Richardson from the Ohio Hemp Company, going on and on. None of that really matters, though. Really, the biggest question that I need to get to Justin and TJ from the Ohio Hemp Company is, Justin, your grandfather was in the State Fair Hall of Fame. That's what the interwebs tells me. He's doing these things, which I didn't realize there was a State Fair Hall of Fame. It never occurred to me that there would be a State Fair Hall of Fame. Because when I think State Fairs, I think fried pickles and terrible rides. So I'm like, did Justin's grandfather make killer fried pickles? Maybe, I'm not sure. But I'm going to assume it's for one of those agricultural things that no one really goes to except for 4-H people. Maybe you guys did as farmers. I'm not sure. None of it matters. Here's the most important question right now, Justin Helt, TJ Richardson from the Ohio Hemp Company. At fairs, what's your favorite fair food? When you go to the fair, when you go to the Ohio State Fair, whatever little rinky-dink fair happens in Dayton, when you go to the fair, what's kind of that favorite fair food that you have to have when you walk in the door? When you put the keys in the car, when you hit the gas pedal and you're driving down and you're turning in, what's salvation? What is making all that saliva? Tell me. Lay it on me.
Our county fair, the birthplace of 4-H, it has to be the one and only pork producers pork chops. They're the best thing.
I would have never gone pork chop. All right, tell me, describe. That's a description. Let's pretend we're Food Show Network hosts. Tell me some details, some adverts, some adjectives. Like
I'll I got a good
go
one.
for it, TJ.
I'm talking 2.5, 3 inches maybe of the juiciest, smokiest, softest, most tender little, just light pink piece of meat you'll ever put in your mouth.
That is good. Now, how much is it really expensive? Because usually fair food gets like overly priced. Does he gouge you on his delicious piece of pork chop?
It might be the best price thing at the fairgrounds. $5 for a pork chop. Always has been, always will be.
The fried cheese and Oreos aren't even $5 these days. And he's tossing $5.
Don't jinx us. You know everything's gone up $1. Justin just jinxed us. We have a lot of wood around us, though.
Yeah, he's got to struggle. He had like 2 or 3 years off during that coronavirus. They're now making up money. They're having fees tossed onto there just because of not being able to do those. Is there something, do you touch the fried foods? Are you down with that? Is there something you don't eat or refuse to go to?
Yeah, you know, I'm not into the super deep fried candy bar stuff.
Overrated, by the way. Just overrated.
Overrated, yeah.
Yeah, as soon as you open it up, it's like a melty, gooey mess, which sounds like delicious. Like I want a Snickers bar, and I want it to be deep fried and battered. I want it to just melt in my mouth. The problem is it's like hot, boiling nougat, and that is not an enjoyable experience in any way, shape, or form.
No.
Fairs aside, apologies to your grandfather. Just had to work that in. We have Justin Helt.
Jim Helt. Shout out Jim Helt.
Shout out Jim Helt. Ohio Agricultural Hall of Fame, too. Dude's just been around. He's been farming. It's in the lineage, you two. It's in the bloodstream, Justin. So I can see why you guys may have wanted to get into the hemp industry, get into farming. Justin Helt, TJ Richardson, the Ohio Hemp Company. Thank you guys for joining on the show today. So we're going to talk a lot about what you guys are doing and how you got into this industry, maybe even some of your OG stories. But in reading up on where you two started, and you probably tell the story all the time because it hits all the same stories in the same articles. But I thought it was cool that you guys both came out. You had kind of graduated and were looking for something to do. You had this agricultural background, but you did not want to go into hemp. You wanted to go into the other H, hops, right? You wanted to go more into the hops when you first got started. So was that kind of the bond that got you two together as business partners, was trying to create a craft brewery, which turned into hemp company? Let's talk a little bit kind of about how you met and where maybe a first business idea that we could work together formed.
Yeah. So, I mean, we each have a different version of it, obviously, but pretty similar. But it actually goes way back further. So Justin and I went to the same high school, actually.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. And so he was a junior and I was a senior. So he was just a grade younger. And we didn't really know each other, like, at all. Like, we had no idea. Like, we knew of one another, but had never like said hello. It's like, there's that guy whose grandfather is so famous. Yeah, he's in the Agriculture Hall of Fame, bro. No. So yeah, just fast forward. Like, we graduate, we go through high school, and then, you know, we both go to college for 4 years. We get out of college, we get big boy jobs in the state of Kentucky. Lo and behold, we both end up graduating from universities in Kentucky, and so we both wind up in Louisville one day. And it's the funniest story. So like I was trying to make new friends, and I was like new in town, total like weirdo, right? Everybody thinks I'm a cop anyways. So it's like horrible like personality trait to try to make friends. Like, and there's so many funny stories. Remind me to tell you a funny story about that later. But so everybody thinks I'm a cop. So it's like, I'm trying to make new friends. I've got this like 1 or 2 buddies who are inviting me to things. And one buddy's like, hey, we're going to go over to my one friend's house. They're filming a music video. And I'm like, you know, I'm 23 years old. I'm ready, you know, come on.
Yeah, I am there.
Took a little pre-workout, my supplements a few hours earlier. I was just feeling, I'm like, all right. And he's like, hey, he wants a motorcycle. I happen to have a motorcycle at the time. So anyways, end up at this music video, roasting my back tires for this like rap song music video in the alley of Schnitzelburg, Louisville, Kentucky. and
the hard streets.
And Justin Helt, this dude right here, is in the music video with a girl like twerking on him in the back of a truck, I think, or something. You know, we're just like we're trying to make a name for ourselves. And anyways, he looks at me and I look at him, and he's like, do I know you? And it was like, there it is. That's from history. That was probably like 8-9 years ago now. So,
so hold on. Hey, is this video available online right now?
Debatable.
We'll find it for you.
I feel like you should know that. I feel like if I was in a video and someone was like
It got
twerking
taken
on
down.
me,
No, it got
like,
taken
and
down.
it's where I met my future business partner, I would literally have that like in my business signature of my email, like origin story.
Our mutual friend trying to do trying to become the next Elvis was he's like real adamant about taking stuff down that doesn't like go viral.
You gotta let that stuff gestate. You gotta put it out there. You gotta let it live.
See where you came
Give the
from.
people what they want.
Yes, I right now, like I was about to Google it and we were gonna bring it up on air because I would love to see that. So, Justin, that's a pretty interesting story. Do you have a different version of that? Are you contradicting what TJ said? Was it twerking? Was it more like the lambada versus twerking? Or were we gonna dance? Like how specific diversion of story are we gonna get here?
Well, I learned a very important line from some politicians a few years ago. It goes along the lines of no comment.
It's a good word to say. Terrible answer for a podcast guest, but great words to say.
It may have been one or the other. I guess we're gonna have to find that video and confirm the story here.
Hey,
those
were corporate times. All right. It was the rough, dark NASDAQ, the trading floors, they were dark times for us.
It just is a scene, though, just like you would. And I appreciate you doing a really good job, TJ Richardson from the Ohio Hemp Company, like describing that pork chop that you can find at the fair. I have this vivid imagery of like this hot day. You're behind this warehouse in Dayton and you're like revving that tire, right, and burning it. And poor Justin's over there and the girl's twerking. And you literally like, do I know you? That's a really
happened. It was weird, dude. And here's the thing, like we were both out of our element. Like we're not like, this was our first music video. We're both being thrown in the lion's pit here. When you just graduated high school or college, like, that's why they don't hire. That's why they tell you got to have 5 to 10 years experience. They want you to get in the lion pit a little bit,
They want you less than a year removed from filming an underground high school video. Yes, they do. It's one of those things. They'd like to have you a little bit of removed from I'll take any work I can get. I'll show up in the video for beer. Yes, that's not a resume hit.
A Natapole only goes so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's only go. It only plays with a certain audience, or it's only a certain amount of people that are going to really a certain demographic that's going to hit with that. So you guys meet, you run into each other, like, oh, hey, we're shooting a video, but we know each other from back in the day. That's one thing, which first to me feels like you would like separate. Like I would be embarrassed to look at each other.
So fast forward, we're in the corporate world. We're both working in corporate USA, Louisville, Kentucky. We work and live together for the next few years, and then we split up again. So I jet off to California, go work for Metro Goldwyn Mayer, MGM, the Lion, the whole entertainment world. Had fun in that for a little bit, and then Justin was still in Louisville. So, anyways, fast forward a little further, the world ends. The world comes to a close here, in early 2020,
Sure.
And so we both wound up, back home a little before then, it was just like, it was like texting each other one day and was like, hey, like he found out I was here. I found out he was here. Anyways, one thing led to another. And it was like, we just hung out a couple times and it was like, we were already, when we lived together in Louisville, we were already pretty entrepreneurial. We did all kinds of fun things. We helped a bicycle shop owner write an editorial for a big magazine that came up. We helped people get their information right on Google searches. So like when we realized there were a number of small businesses that when you Google them, there was no phone number or website or anything. So we just kind of like had fun doing some little side hustle stuff together, like entrepreneurially. Like Justin was working for a brewery, a craft brewery, Goodwood. Shout out Goodwood, cameo.
Shout out Goodwood.
And shout out Goodwood Brewing Company. And he got me in, helping out with some entertainment stuff for them, some commercials, some modeling, some photo shoots, and marketing things. And we just had a lot of fun. We just had a lot of fun for quite a few years. And then when the world kind of shut down and we both ended up back in the same place, it was kind of like a no-brainer. I remember coming over one day and telling him like, hey, everybody else is like putting on their pajamas and getting ready for the long winter. And I was like, how about we turn this into like startup boot camp? And so, like you heard yesterday, we caught wind that Governor DeWine administration was going to fast forward and fast speed this USDA approved hemp program. And obviously I knew what you just knew and was like, hey man, your grandpa's pretty kick ass. Your family's pretty kick ass. Let's be a part of this new emerging agriculture industry and market. And it's been an amazing 3 years.
Was your grandfather, Justin, is someone, I don't mean to talk too much your grandfather. It's just kind of interesting. He ties you two together, but he's that agricultural background. But I'm going to stereotype a small bit here. I'm going to guess a fella that's been around for a little bit and has only known, you think of cannabis, like you say cannabis, you think of reefer madness, you think of getting high and these things. And we obviously know so much more about hemp. But even then, when you're talking, you're still on just after the release of the 2018 Farm Bill, the U.S. Agricultural Act, which classified it, only a few years removed from the 2014, Farm Bill, which kind of even invented this classification, this 0.3% that they devised. So you're freshly out. Ohio at that time had no, there was no, Senate Bill 57. There's no actual Ohio hemp program. So we were just dealing with the slight legalization. CBD was found in seedy head shops and stuff like that. No one was finding it. So when you go to your grandfather, Justin, and you're like, hey, we're going to become hemp farmers. And I'm sure it was a little bit more, professional than that, business plan tossed in there. He said, I'm going to be a hemp farmer. Was there this natural generational resistance, or was he more kind of comfortable with it?
So surprisingly, actually, my grandpa was quite supportive at the beginning, right from the start. He is old enough to kind of remember when they brought it back for the war effort. And then he was also, one of his neighbors was part of growing the first crop of soybeans in Ohio. And he was like, this is actually really cool. Like, this is the most exciting thing in agriculture since soybeans got introduced to the state. So, but also we were obviously very good at that point at explaining, what hemp was, what the difference between it and marijuana was, and about all the different applications that it could be put into and put to use.
That really excites me here. I got to tell you, one of the things that really bothers me, particularly about Ohio, and we can talk a little bit about the rules and the regulations and obviously the restrictions that they put onto it. But Ohio is to me, at its core, kind of a very agricultural state. Soybeans, corn, some of our two biggest crops that we put out. I look at hemp, heck, I look at cannabis as this agricultural product. And I'm shocked sometimes, bewildered, other than personal bias, other than maybe a perceived moral bias, when you have Ohio, and maybe even a place like Nebraska and Kansas, some of the last two holdouts. And obviously you've seen some better usage of growing hemp in some of these more Bible Belt states and, Carolinas and Kentucky, but they're still kind of away from that legal THC. I'm shocked that more, I'm going to stereotype here in a big bubble here, people. I'm shocked that more conservative leaning folks who probably would tend to not be for cannabis aren't more in on hemp. Right. I'm more shocked for that. Have you run into that as you're going through this? These people who are farmers, like they're agricultural by nature. And what I love about the Ohio Hemp Company is you don't talk a lot about some of the other products and consumables, right? You're looking in more to these fibers and these grains and what we can do as scientists and farmers with a crop. But we don't see the embracement from those typical conservative, more Bible Belt leaning folks as a farming product, which I think would change industry. How has that been for you guys, kind of going through it, being younger, but dealing with older farmers who just maybe turn their nose up at the plant itself?
I'll say my short version of it. With great challenge comes great responsibility. So, and not only responsibility, but opportunity, in my opinion. And so the idea is as simple as this. Play by the rules, right? So the USDA, your state, whatever rules are put out there, play by the rules and find a way to win. So the great example that I'll give here is Charlotte's Web. They have a lot of momentum and prior, call it intellectual property that really helped along the way, along with some great willpower. But they've continued to find a way to win with the recent MLB announcement that they're the official CBD partner of the MLB just a week ago. So shout out.
Yeah, shout out to them.
Yeah, shout out and congratulations, Charlotte's Web, on breaking barriers and becoming the first CBD brand to be the official CBD of the MLB. And so on that note, my short answer is the way that we get the traditional Bible Belt folks involved and engaged is by finding a market and engaging that market. And that's really more of the focus today. You mentioned Jobs Ohio. I will say my comment there, we are in active conversations with Tim Derrickson, who is the director of agriculture and food at Jobs Ohio. So we are, to your point, working with and trying to engage at the highest levels, decision makers that can help get this conservative traditional state involved. Because to your point, when you create an investment landscape, create a little map with all these different hemp investments, particularly industrial hemp, and you're looking down at this U.S. map, there is this massive blank circle. And it is right over the state of Ohio. So yeah. we are losing out on tens of millions of dollars in both federal, state funding, and quite frankly, local community driven opportunities. So that's kind of my short of it. But what do you think, Justin? Things that have.
Oh, I mean, you pretty much covered it all. Honestly,
covered it all. Justin's a man of few words right now. Going for it.
No, Justin likes the controversial stuff. He's like the lawyer. So like at the stuff that makes people mad, ask Justin those questions, and he has a lot of opinions on it.
I'm not a mad person. What's funny is it's the happy-go-lucky. That's what I bring Dustin for. He's not a bad person either. We're just a bunch of too happy people here.
Like the people who like to poke the fire, you poke him, and it's like, yeah, he turns into
gets going. It's funny. We were talking about that Jobs Ohio before we started recording the show today, and so I recently, as part of my role, and the people have listened to the podcast, I've heard me talk about my job here as director of marketing with the Cleveland School of Cannabis. I've been engaging people in workforce development. And so I've been attending and working with some Jobs Ohio folks. And I watched or attended virtually, I guess, a Zoom board meeting for the recent Jobs Ohio. And so they had this, and this, you guys may not know this. I don't know if you saw this. It was just a couple of weeks ago, about a 20-minute section dedicated to their rebranding of Ohio Liquor. About 2 years ago here in the state of Ohio, sometime around coronavirus, Ohio Liquor rebranded itself. It became a marketing opportunity, OHLQ. They got a new logo out there. And so they talked about all this job creation, of which were less than 1,000 jobs in 2 years, all this money, of which paled in comparison of what legal cannabis would do, all these jobs and money that they're bringing to the area. And they talked about farmers and they talked about all this other work. And then they went and talked to another 20 or 30 minutes following that about inclusivity and diversity and ownership. And so both of these sections, basically, they're talking about how awesome, and I'm paraphrasing here, how awesome alcohol is for the state of Ohio for job creation and for inclusivity and diversity. Yet there are substantially more, and this is a fact that could be argued, but substantially more jobs created in hemp or cannabis production, because you don't just have to make the jobs to create breweries, you have to make the jobs to dispense it, the jobs to sell it. There's all these processing jobs. So you have an untold amount of jobs. And so it's frustrating for me as a person sitting here watching the celebration, of more breweries, of more alcohol-based jobs, when I think cannabis as a crop, right, hemp especially, but you can even include the legalization, the legal THC. If you get that in there, you would have so many more jobs created, so many more opportunities for diversity and ownership, so many more small businesses and entrepreneurs and things that could start up. It's frustrating to hear that. And you guys came from kind of that background. You wanted to start the brewery initially. How does it make you feel? Just kind of thinking about what Ohio's pushing. I mean, pushing the money. I don't remember the numbers, but the money they said they spent in this 2 years to create this was huge. And yet you have this program, which you could just legalize easier, and you'd probably have way more results. And the only thing stopping you is your own bias, right?
Yeah, that's not a lie. Well, unfortunately, I guess something that we've been told by kind of coming from the Department of Agriculture is that they're not allowed to be cheerleaders. They're just there to enforce the regulations that our lawmakers have put into place. So I guess really the better place to start would be with our lawmakers that sit on our ag committees and things like that. And so there's a lot of complaining going on. We just need to complain to the right people.
That's what it is sometimes. Yeah. Yelling at the internet, yelling at the clouds is not going to make things change, people. You got to get out there. You got to make some action.
Yes,
maybe
Matt,
get
yes.
something
Shout
done.
out. Yes, let's shout them out. Max Miller, Chantel Brown, John Husted, Mike DeWine, Sherrod Brown. All of those names, those people are directly involved in making agriculture decisions for the state of Ohio. I'll say it one more time. Max Miller, Chantel Brown, John Husted, Mike DeWine, and Sherrod Brown.
I love it. I don't know. It's once again, it needs to happen. I'll be down in Columbus. This is going to be on what's recorded, but after that, I'll be down in Columbus on April 20th for Lobby Day. We're going to head down there and do our own kind of version, getting into these people to put on, peaceful protests and get out there. So it is something that has to change. That thought process. Do you guys find that as, you're both young folks there. We say that lovingly in your early 30s. Do you find that when you tell people what you do, right, do you have to say like, I'm an agricultural stop and then wait and see if they say more and say I grow hemp, or do you go all in on the business card, rip open the shirt and it's like hemp grower? Like, do you hide it, or are you nervous about, or do you tiptoe still around the plant?
I'm cool. I'm cool with talking about it directly as it is. Particularly, I'll use high level science words is to the point where I've gotten, right, like laboratory level words. And then as soon as you're like speaking higher than someone comprehends, they're like, oh, this guy's smart. Like, okay, they must be like. So I've just learned to sidestep it because it's completely just retaliatory if not. But yeah. So, and I would say back to your prior point, you were just talking about like the view of it, like, and getting people to move forward. Yeah. It's just basically organizing people, and getting enough people talking about it. But I wanted to go back to a point I made on Green Hour, which is your pain, this pain that you just brought up, and this, from the conservative angle, from comparing it to alcohol, which is great. You said that. My girlfriend was just joking around this morning. She woke up and the first thought she had was like, she said something to me like, isn't it crazy that the government will let people like die and all this stuff happens to their body? Like, it's the only drug that affects every part of your body, alcohol. Like, they'll let them have that, but you guys can't get, like hemp and cannabis stuff.
No, and the state of Ohio just spent millions. I don't know the exact number, but it was millions with 7 or whatever, 6 zeros, millions to rebrand and resell and push OHLQ, right? I like drinks. I like a good IPA, a good whiskey.
I love that. And I think you should hover on that. I think we could create a similar cannabis program using that framework. But the last point I wanted to make was that this pain you're feeling, and these issues that we're all feeling and that we've kept repeating for year after year after year, we're not alone. And I brought up on the Green Hour show that there was the recent first ever cannabis conversation at the UN in Geneva, Switzerland, just a few months back. And that is recorded. You can go online and find that. And all it simply was in their own words, a facilitation of a conversation. So some people showed up and got like real up in arms and pretty frustrated because there was no, like, the UN didn't come out and say, we want everyone to grow hemp and we support industrial hemp. Or the UN didn't come out and say like, hey, concentrates are okay, so smoke them up. Like they didn't come out and say anything. And so these people started to get frustrated, and it's a great thing to watch. It's really entertaining. Actually, I recommend it to anybody, but it will make you feel so much more at ease with this pain that you're feeling, because everyone around the world, they're discovering that we're experiencing the same pain. It like country to country, we're experiencing it. But here's the issue, and here's why we have to bring it up on podcasts in the United States of America, because other countries look at the United States for guidance. They look to us, for light, right? They want us to be that light in the dark. So for example, on the genetics front, what Berner and Cookies and the genetics that he's traveling the world and the country and selecting some of the most elite terpene and flavonoid profiles that exist today. The other countries are salivating over that. We are light years. We're like Star Wars light years ahead of every other. So, if you apply that same mindset to like you just mentioned, the industrial hemp sector, or you apply that to like concentrates, even like, look at how world-class concentrates have gotten. Like, you're like, you look at them in stores now, you're like, is that even real? Like this stuff looks so pristine and so just like, it looks like it's alien technology. I mean, the technology is advancing so quickly. So I love right where we're at, and the positives to the story are that the green movement has already started, and so we just have to be a part of the less frictionless parts.
Yeah, just trying to keep that friction down. When you guys first got started, and I was reading how you guys, I think you have like outdoor hoop houses. Is that correct? Kind of your grow setup there. You're growing outdoors. You're doing outdoor.
We've done all the different setups. So we've done indoor, we've done hybrid. We refer our hoop houses are hybrid. So we use different coating of different coats of plastic, different types of plastic. We've done lots of different experiments on white plastic, clear plastic, black plastic, different shades, different colors. And then they're sort of hybrid environments. So meaning you can lift up the sides of the plastic, right? So you can give them that natural airflow if you need to, or you can keep them nice and tight, and you could essentially make a hoop house airtight if you really wanted to with enough willpower. And then we also have a greenhouse operation as well. So have been able to experiment with in a few different environments, and that's been super helpful.
Well, it's interesting because I was going to ask if you had a preferred method as you kind of got going and through this experimentation of outdoors and indoors, if you have settled on one of your preferred growing methods, or if you're still just kind of playing around with how this plant is able to be manipulated in different light and different humidity and different temperatures.
If our future preferred buyer is listening right now, we can grow organically and to a T exactly what we tell you we're going to grow. So if it's an 8 to 10% CBG that comes back with no pesticides, no metals, no diseases, no fold, no molds, no fungus, that should mean something. And we've been able to do that in multiple environments. So if our future partner is listening, Reverb Wellness, shout out any of you guys.
Shout out Reverb Wellness, Josh and Leo. Good to see you, fellas.
Plant Puff.
Shout out Alex Huska, Lenny Berry.
Yeah. So if any of you guys that are leading the charge, creating safe consumer-focused products, what we do is figure out how to produce quantities of that for you at scale in your given environment. So if it needs to be, if the terps and flavonoids and some other variables need to be on point and like 100% there, it's indoor all day, right? I mean, there are advantages if you need to minimize the pest risk, indoor all day, right? But if you're looking for someone that needs 10,000 pounds of biomass, it's like there's fields. There's reason fields exist.
You just can't replicate the sun.
Yeah.
No, it is that battle, right? There's even that battle like in the THC world. There are people who will swear about the sun kiss, like if it's not kissed by the sun, I want nothing to do with it. I don't mind hydroponics. I guess I'm just picky in that regard, but I don't know. There's some people who swear by that outdoor, by the soil and nothing but, right? And I think in THC, because it's consumed, you can definitely have that taste profile. But have you found a lot of differences in a plant grown for fiber and grown for grain in its indoor outdoor, the sun versus the hydroponic? Do you see better results in one or the other?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
yep. Just the natural oxygen, the air.
Yeah, just from a size and yield perspective, you just can't replicate the power and intensity of the sun.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously then when you have like those like super clean and the terpene profiles and things like that you need a more controlled environment to help bring out, then there's just different circumstances fit different situations,
Yeah.
It makes sense though. I mean, it makes sense because when you have like something that's going full term, like a cannabis plant that's planted in say March and then it's harvested in the fall, that's got that 6 months outside, 8 months outside, and it's getting like pounds and it's, it's canopy huge and enormous.
You can't replicate that inside. There's just not the space for it.
But then
start taking the roofs off your buildings.
But then when you deliver that top cola, and even though it might be trimmed, even though it might be, call it 80% of what in terms of a flavor and taste profile, it might be 80% of its brother or of its sister, in the indoor environment. The issue is there still might be a beetle or a caterpillar curled up in
sure.
big nug, molding away, and it's just comes down to a quality thing. And so it's been great that, there was a question brought up on Green Hour of do we need more processors, or, what types of processing could we use? I think the last time we looked, there's a few a little over 40 processors in the state of Ohio, hemp processors, I should say. And they, we've called all of them. We've at least left a voicemail or called every one of them. And some people were like, I don't know why my number is on this list. I don't do hemp. We've gotten that all the way to I own a bakery and we do bread, and I just got the license to like experiment. Will you guys quit calling me? Like, we've heard some funny, and then when you talk to the ones that are up and running, like I mentioned, they're calibrating equipment. They're running into the remediation hurdles. They immediately make some runs, and then they're like, oh shit, we have a bunch of like way hotter than 0.3% stuff in this jar, and there is nothing a hemp processor can do with that right now under the current rules.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah, like, isn't that crazy? Like, and I'm
started
talking
at your own expense.
Yeah, and I'm talking about like a daily decision. Like, yes, there's remediation options. There's all these there's like a long list of things you get, but I'm talking about like on a day-to-day business, like you make a run of concentrates or you make a run of crude oil, and you need to just move something and ship something. You don't want to have to risk your entire operation. And you certainly don't want to, again, play outside of the rules. Our firm belief, the Ohio Hemp Company, it will always stand by, play within their rules. So we are a USDA. We tell all of our partners they want to do things sometimes differently. They want to have different ideas of how things can work. We are a USDA approved hemp program. So that's important because not every state in the United States has a USDA approved program. So our rules are just a little bit tighter. And so we've just got to play by those rules and make sure that Jim and Dave are happy with what we're doing, that we are meeting the rules sufficiently. And beyond that, they're here to support any way that they can. But like Justin mentioned, no one has certainly ever called us yet and said, hey, we've got a $500 million idea and we'd like to partner with you guys to make it happen. And we're certainly sitting here saying, we're willing to entertain those talks. We can all go get the small business loan together.
Let's go do it. I love it. The Ohio Hemp Company, they're going to make your $500 million dream come true. Justin Helt, TJ Richardson. You guys, it's a thing we talk about, and I know the folks at Reverb and over Alex and them over at Plant Puff and Organic Plus Brands, that testing in the numbers and these percentages is what make a hemp program, especially in the consumable version of the plant, make it very difficult to tiptoe around. When you have a plant that's growing, and this is one of those things, are you out there? Do we have the ability now to kind of test in the field, or is it once you're done, it's either above 0.3 or not? How is this science evolving to try to eliminate end result testing? Are we testing in the field yet?
So they're working on that technology. We know of a company, they've got like basically a little box, and it's supposed to be able to do some in-field testing, but those capabilities are real expensive. And
its variance was like, what was its variance?
Oh yeah, and it had maybe
is that the
10% variance?
It had
plus
or minus
they're
10%.
working on it.
Well, that's the whole point, right? If it's plus or minus 10%,
exactly.
then
so
you're in decimal points, people.
That might help you in a marijuana grow up, but it's not going to do a whole lot for you in terms of THC compliance in a hemp field quite yet. So at the moment, we pretty much just have to, be very selective with the genetics that we grow, test often, and just be very aware of what's going on in the field. We're walking those rows of plants every day. Checking on the trichomes. We've got a little portable microscope that we go look at each individual nugs throughout the field and
love it.
Checking the trichomes for their curling and their coloration.
Yep. Yeah. Or if you're talking fiber and grain, you're looking for certain levels of maturity. Mm-hmm. So it comes down to, people are always like, how do you know when to harvest, or how do you know when they're ready? And with the fiber and grain yields, it's more of walking the rows and looking for a certain level of maturity in that plant.
I need you to help dispel a rumor for me. I've heard, and you guys will probably be the closest source I've had recently on this topic, that hemp growers struggle with testing, and particularly Ohio hemp growers. Let me narrow this down. Ohio hemp growers struggle with testing in the state of Ohio because it's not profitable for a lot of testing companies. The calibration between THC and hemp is not worth it. And a lot of them are just sending their products to maybe a neighboring state to get tested and such. Is that something, that we're running into? And if it is, how can we help hemp growers get better at testing? Because if it is not as profitable as the THC world.
Yeah, my simple answer is yes, we need help.
Okay, it sounds like everyone I talk to that's growers gets frustrated
so,
by this.
So anyone listening, I'll just leave it at this. Justin could say his. If anyone listening can make a $35 potency test, and all you need to include is potency of THC at that moment. You don't even need to include any additional minors if you don't want to. But if you can make a $35 basic potency test, we will not have to ship our simples to Kentucky every single week
because where they all go.
That's what we do. And it's just a cost thing. So to your point, it's for a farmer. This is all about cost. So like let's talk about a hot topic for cover crops. Farmers love this is a hot topic in agriculture right now. Cover crops, they've struggled convincing farmers to grow cover crops, and many of what you just considered, what you talked about, conservative traditional farmers, cover crops they talk about it now like it's this like bio emerging industry, like it's this like revolutionary, groundbreaking news that growing cover crops is like healthy for the soil. But no, it's just a cost thing. My belief, my opinion is like a farmer's like, look, I have to spend more money to put seeds in the ground, right? Every time you buy seed, you're spending money. So, if growing crops is something that is, it's a cost thing. And so I think we've ran into that, on the side.
It's probably tough though, because you go and you want to support, and I know a few other companies like yourself that are basically Ohio through and through, right? You can grow it in Ohio, you can send it up to Reverb up here in Berea, and they can process it in Ohio, but you can't put that Ohio tested, and it kind of hurts a little bit. And it feels like that's something, once again, those names of folks, hit rewind a little bit back, those names of folks that we put out there, that's something I think that they could help along the way, because it feels like everyone thinks THC, in hemp, it's all about that number, but you guys are probably, you just said for the minors, but you're probably testing some other things in there to make sure it's different contaminants, it's metals, and all those things are also there.
Yeah, and those tests, just one test to give the listeners an idea, just one test of what BC just mentioned is a full panel. We call it a full panel. Just one of those tests can range from $210 to $325 per variety.
Okay, define variety then. What's that mean?
Just individual cultivar. So a name. Right? OG Kush. If you're going to test OG Kush and you want a full panel, meaning you want to know, like as a producer or processor or a manufacturer, like you're about to buy 500 pounds from us. And so it's a huge investment. You want to know that this is safe for you, safe for everybody, that all, everything's been covered. That test ranges between $200 and $300 per variety. So, and so when we ask for $300 a pound, right? Yeah, that's just that could just be one test that we had to run. The costs associated with any type of cannabis operation is extremely high if you want to have a quality end product.
It's interesting. I want to talk about some of those, I call them dirty costs, right? Some of those costs that people don't think about, nice thing is you have a smaller business, but I would imagine after a while, because some of the three things where it tends to run into people unknowing it, where it's water and electricity. We know those two. You're already saving some a little bit with using the sunlight, but I'm happy or excited to see if you guys are doing anything else, any rainwater management, any dehumidifier recirculation, things like that. I'm just making up words today. Things like that. So we have that aspect. So is that something where you're spending money or trying to avoid it? And then the last major issue is payroll. And I don't know if you guys are starting out, if you're there yet with that payroll, but how has it been? And you just mentioned it, TJ, cost controlling. And what are some of those things maybe that you learned early on or didn't know about that, like, oh shit, this costs a ton of money, like to run this electricity. Have you had any of those like, holy moly, moments where you opened up a bill and didn't realize how much your utilities actually are?
I think we have, but it hasn't been, Justin may have a different idea. It hasn't been as surprising, at least, I always look at Justin and our farm family here, as we call it. I always look at their face when we spend money, to try to answer that question. And it's like always, it's never been like alarming. And I think it's because in agriculture, I think cost is just a part of the game. But that's why it's so important, So spending money, so a combine or a beautiful new Case or John Deere Cat 2 or Cat 3 tractor can cost you upwards of $250,000.
Wow. I don't think I knew that. I don't think I always wondered how that. I don't think I've really put a lot of thought into production costs on a farm. Right. I think about that in a lot of businesses and such. And you think of farming as they got land, they got the sun, they got the rain, they're good to go. But I don't think people realize when you look at agriculture, the immense cost for, I don't know what the profit margins are like, but it can't be huge, especially starting out until you scale.
Property tax is a real thing.
Oh, really? I haven't even thought, it's funny because I think about that in a business, but you have to have a lot of land, like a ton of land to produce this shit. So you have to have an immense amount of property.
And I'm tipping my hat to the Helt family, for doing it and caring about it. So how many farms do we hear about that go up for sale every day?
Oh yeah, 50, all the time.
50 to 800 acre farms that go up for sale. It's not because no one wanted to farm. That's part of it. It's the property tax. If you can't figure out how to pay for this huge, massive chunk of property that you have, and the federal government says, hey, you're still paying us at the end of the day. The state government saying, hey, you're still paying us at the end of the day. You have to learn how to make your land. You have to learn how to generate revenue off your land. And the farm father, the farm dad says it all the time that farmers are the OG entrepreneurs.
Oh yeah, no, I can see that for sure.
He likes to joke around with me and say that all the time. And it's so, yeah. And exactly. The more you say it to yourself, you're like, that is true. I mean, the original farmers of this country and small business owners were fully vertical themselves. They had to do everything. They were their own marketing. They were their own sales. They had to create their product, and the farmers certainly still do that to this day. And it's a problem. It's a big issue. So that's one of the things that you mentioned we can talk to about what's sexy about hemp. What's something to take away from this call here is that farmer suicide is at an all-time high in the United States. Particularly for farmers over the age of 55. And so something that really gets us going and keeps us motivated every day is that when we get that first random call from an interested farmer who just wants to know more about hemp, whether that's a genetic or whether it's, how much does that their irrigation cost, or, whatever the question might be, it's an honor for us to get a chance to help farmers spend money appropriately, answer some of these tough questions the best we can. It's personal for us. Yeah.
That's kind of exciting. I didn't really think about that. And I did see something. I know I was on a little bit on your Facebook, which is Ohio Hemp Co., or maybe on your Instagram at the Ohio Hemp Company. The Ohio Hemp Company can find them online as well on their website that they're working on, TOHC.us, was the, man, I was trying to deal with my promos and I just forgot where I was going on my question there. That's what happens sometimes. You get to go without Dustin here to kind of piggyback off of it. It's just thinking about, these farmers and how you're out there, like trying to help them, inform them. You're doing a few panels recently and you tried to be part of a few things that were about educating people, the same people you just talked about, or maybe some of these conservative folks or anti-hemp or anti-cannabis folks we talked about in the beginning of this conversation. Like you're doing or trying your best to be facilitators, right? You're not taking all your secret sauce. And you see that a lot in this industry. You see a lot of people who feel like they got the magic item, the magic grow, the magic soil, the magic temperature, the magic relative humidity. And they're like, no, they can't tell anyone. I'm going to redact it.
We have a very explicit term for that.
What is that term? Well, maybe you can, I don't give a shit if you say it. You could say it behind closed doors.
We just call it dick swinging. And it's like, you gotta.
Oh, yes.
We gotta stop.
Like of every conversation.
Like we jump on calls now and we're like, hey, Lamborghini keys on the table, and let's move to the second part of the conversation. Like we get it. We get that everybody's got, like, look, even a congressional friend of mine, a member on Capitol Hill, just said the other day, what's holding your industry back? He said everybody thinks they have like the magic idea, so they're all operating in a silo. Everyone's just we'll talk to each other. Don't get me wrong. Justin and I have had the 500 plus conversations that only happen once, and you're like you end it and you're like, come on, like call us back like next week and we'll start this project.
Trade show pillow talk. That's what I call it. When you go to a trade show and half the people at the trade show you make deals with, and you only get calls from two of them and they all ghost you. It's all pillow talk in these networking meetings and stuff like that.
Pillow talk. So shout out to B.C. Wehman, shout out to Wayward Media, shout out to just because cannabis. Yes, shout out to everyone that behind you and your magic, because these conversations are really where the power is. These conversations are really what is, not only educating the industry, all of us together. we're all educating each other here, even on this recording. So it's special that we're a part of this. And I always tell Justin, every time we bitch, we're going to offer 2 solutions for every one bitch. So every time
That's a good compromise.
Every time we complain, we're going to offer 2 solutions. It sucks. We get it, but there are ideas and there are people that we can reach out to talk about. So a couple of those other things, just to drop them, are the hemp fiber and grain exemption. Again, the hemp and fiber and grain exemption. This is something that would be really helpful for you to mention to any of those representatives. What it means simply in a nutshell is, hey, fiber and grain hemp, industrial grown hemp, does not require quite the oversight that a metabolite or flower hemp might require. So we're asking politicians to work with us, lower the barrier to entry and a couple of other things. So again, that's the fiber and grain hemp exemption. You can Google that. It's the very first link that'll pop up. And then there's also great work being done by the Hemp Feed Coalition. And, why is hemp feed so important? Why does everybody keep talking about it? I said it yesterday on the Green Hour interview. Hemp hearts, so the edible version of cannabis. You can eat quite a few parts of it, but the most edible and the most enjoyable part, the heart, is the only part of the plant that has received GRAS approval from the federal government. GRAS, GRAS, standing for generally regarded as safe. Why is that so important? That's because the federal government quite a few years ago did enough research and studies on hemp hearts. They actually did it. And they were like, hey, this is all right. This is all right. This is all right. You guys can do this. And they gave us a little acronym. We got to run with that shit.
Yes.
Run with that. Everybody needs to wake up, start putting GRAS at the end of your product, start telling everybody else what it means. We got to run with that. So when I was asked, should it be legal for animal consumption? Absolutely. We're already feeding our animals our table scraps. Yeah, they're good. Protein and amino acids aren't going to hurt them one bit. Skinny them right up.
No, and I think it's funny. It's funny we even say that because I think that's what a lot of people I don't think they fully comprehend how many uses, right? When we talk hempcrete and other things, but I don't think they realize these basic uses like feed, these basic uses that could be plentiful available. I mean, I have this whole sales pitchy thing. I talk to people about the amount of, herd that you can grow versus trees in a decade, in a year, and how you can replenish that. The acres and acres and acres of forest you could save if you just used herd for simple things that you use instead of using the paper pulp for. But it's all out there. It's out there, that information, as you said, if you just Google it, it's right there. But when we talk hemp, and I would say in my world, especially with everyone I talk hemp, it always comes back to, I love the word you use, the metabolite version, kind of the consumable flour version. And there is not enough on the hemp and fiber and the grain, the exemption. That is something I'm going to talk to every single person about. I'll give you guys credit because it's something I don't talk about enough. I'm aware of it very vaguely, so I need to do some research and be able to talk about that. Because when you have these conversations, right, you talk to people, and part of the funness of my job is bringing people, for example, into the school. We have a hemp research license. We're growing hemp on site, and just to have them look at oh my God, that's a plant. I'm like, yeah, there's a ton of them here, right? Or to show them a hempcrete wall that we have and say, this is built in our building with a limestone and a swimming pool and water, and that's it. But it's made out of this plant, and we got to get over that. We got to get over in these comfortable conversations where we can have it. I'm hopeful it's going to be there. You guys are more into it, as we kind of start to wind down, and, we got all these things. And by the way, thank you both for joining us. Had an amazing conversation. I could talk for another hour. But as you're winding down, where do you see the Ohio Hemp Company headed now? I already feel like you're so focused. You got some great stuff going. You obviously got big plans. You've only been doing this for a little bit. So as you keep going, or is it going to be finding new genetics? Is it going to be forcing more activism? If you had to pick your shot here, where do you think the direction of your company takes in a 5 to 10 year plan?
I would say that kind of looks more like like a blast of buckshot than a single bullet, but they're all aimed
We got
at the
great
same
analogies on the show today,
target.
by the way.
There's just a couple different routes there, you
I
know.
told you, he's a lawyer. He can do it.
That is a great analogy, though. Like at first, I was like, "What is he talking about?" I didn't mean to interrupt your idea, but now I'm like, "Damn it! I get exactly what you're trying to say with those." That's a good economy of words, Justin. So you're going to be trying to hit a lot of different angles. You think trying to find one that sticks, or you like it? Does the ADHD mean you got to go
This
these areas?
industry is just so new that like you can't just pick one and hope that the other things kind of are evolve alongside of you, because unless you're doing it, they're not.
Yeah, no, and so I'll say my short answer is I think there are benefits to both. I think both can be correct, both can be right. There's not a right or wrong. So I think the Maddie Meads and the Tim Almonds, shout out Heartland Industries and shout out Hempatexture, both Forbes 30 under 30s, the only Forbes 30 under 30s that own and operate a hemp company. How cool. I might be wrong.
I love that.
Maybe there's more, but that's pretty badass.
No one's fact checking this, TJ. It's all right. We believe you.
That's pretty badass to me. And yeah, they're the only two I could find. There's only 30 of them. So if anybody wants to look up the other 28, like be my guest. But both of these guys, like the people that are, the people where this is going, there are people at each end of the spectrum who are doing their part. We've just there are benefits to both. So we got to uplift and support those people. And you can see where there is success if you focus. So your example there, pick one, go all in at it. You can still be successful that way in the cannabis industry. Unfortunately, in the hemp industry, and specifically the Ohio hemp industry, that big blank empty circle that we talked about in the beginning of the show, we are trying to help the state navigate that. So when the state of Ohio, when Jobs Ohio, when Governor DeWine, when Husted, when they're ready to say, hey, this is what we want to do with hemp and how we think it can make an impact, the Ohio Hemp Company is saying, we are here, we hear you, and we are willing and able to have a sit down at the table and make that a reality. And when you go to do that as a small business, as a company, you got to know what you're doing, right? That's not like you can't just like come in and be like, hey, we know our uncle's friend is like this guy, and we're gonna you got to know what you're doing. And so like we've spent the last now 4 years, 3 headed into 4 years doing, is just taking all of that random noise, all of those things that people in this industry, in the cannabis industry, say, this is how you have to do it. This is how it's done. What we've done is we've just put all of that in the field and tested it. We've tested all those ideas. We've gone in the greenhouse. We've gone in the hoop house. We've tested those ideas. We've had emergence the first week of March. People say you can't use cannabis as a cover crop. We planted thousands of seeds on purpose. And sort of on accident, but like it was more on purpose. Obviously, we knew what we were doing, and we just like didn't want to tell Dad. And so like thousands and thousands, we tilled all these plants in the ground in November of the season, and in the first week of March last year, we had thousands of plants. And this was a part of research, right? This is a part of testing. When people say, hey, you can't use hemp as a cover crop. Now, there was some funny, Justin likes to mention, there's some funny variables to that. These seeds were inside of flower, right? Many of them. So these were plants that were destroyed. They were tilled into the field.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
We expected a few plants to pop up, but nothing like the absolute blanket.
They're like my hostas year after year. I just keep coming back and bigger somehow. I don't know how they multiply underground, but every year I'm like, oh, there's more of them.
Yeah. Or like densities. Yeah. Just a lot of different things. But yeah, so I think there's a couple different ways to win. You can be focused, and that certainly will get to the win. And then you can also try to just be a nurturer. And to your point, that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to, our big crazy trade secrets is teamwork. It's just one word.
Yeah, your trade secrets are like motivational posters found on Amazon kind of thing, right? Teamwork and hanging in there.
And I'll leave the audience with this. This is where hemp is headed. You can think of it as industrial. You can think of it as metabolite. However you think of hemp, whatever you think of, the sticky points, the things that are going to move it forward are soil, water, and carbon. Right. So the hot topics of the day right now are soil, water, and carbon. Hemp is the absolute answer when it comes to those three topic areas. How do we know this? How can we prove this? There are multiple research projects ongoing and active being funded by yours truly, your federal government, and many different agencies are putting millions of dollars into soil, water, and carbon research right now, right under your nose. So the sticking point here is hemp will be a part of mainstream agriculture. It is a matter of time. It stinks that back here in 2023, with B.C. Wehman today, we are still waiting for that to happen. Shout out to the future versions of us when we're listening back to this and celebrating industrial hemp being grown at scale here in the state of Ohio. As Jobs Ohio said a few years ago, they do believe that hemp will be number 3 in the state behind corn and soybeans. So we look forward to that day.
I look forward to that day. I hope that happens. I have a feeling Justin Helt and TJ Richardson with the Ohio Hemp Company, you guys are going to be part of that. I love your energy. I love the vibe. I love your big dick swinging out there, doing it all the time, but without Beacon secrets, authenticity. We are authentically hanging it out there, and I appreciate that fully. We'll have all the links to what these guys are talking about in our description below, so you can check it out. Make sure you hit subscribe on there. Thank you, Justin and TJ, for joining us. We're definitely going to talk with you guys soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Cheers.
All right. Take care. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining another exciting edition of Because Cannabis here from Wayward Media every single Wednesday, 4:20 p.m. Also available on audio anywhere you listen to audio podcasts. We'll be back next week with another exciting show. Hopefully have Dustin back with us. Till then, everyone, take care. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week.